A refugee is someone who seeks asylum in a foreign country because of war and violence, or out of fear of persecution. It's an idea that's been around in the UK for over 500 years, and many refugees have had a major impact on the UK's cultural and political life. They include people like Karl Marx and Sigmund Freud, and even members of the royal family. As conflicts and political systems around the world continually change, so too do the countries people are forced to flee. Today, most of the UK's asylum seekers come from Somalia, Afghanistan, the Middle East or Zimbabwe. But deciding which asylum seekers are given leave to remain and become refugees is a very difficult task. In 2007, there were about 23,500 applications for asylum in the UK. 70% were turned down. Today, Hadi Boutamar and his family live a moderately comfortable life in a Sheffield suburb. But their apparently ordinary lifestyle hides the difficult circumstances and traumatic events that forced them to seek asylum in the UK.
I am not here for better life. I came here to save myself, to save my life.
Before he fled Iran, Hadi and his family were relatively well off. They owned 2 small supermarkets, and Hadi also worked as a journalist, producing reports for local and international news stations. Hadi's family lived on the edge of a lake in an area of outstanding natural beauty, and like 50 million other people in the area, Hadi describes himself as being Kurdish.
We can say Kurdish people, they are different nation. We have got all the factor that every nation they have got, because our language is different, our music is different, culture is different, and we have our land, and this land is Kurdish place, it's Kurdish area.
But international borders mean that what Hadi describes as Kurdish land, in fact, consists of an area that crosses 5 different countries: Iran, Iraq, Syria, Turkey and Armenia. With vast quantities of oil and other natural resources in this area, there's been a long history of conflict. Many Kurdish people want to create their own state, independent of these countries, adding to the tension and meaning that the freedoms we take for granted often don't exist.
The newspaper and media inside of Iran, they are not allowed to write everything, and they closed many newspaper in Iran just because they wrote something against government, or they think is against government.
Working as a journalist for Kurdish TV meant Hadi was often under the Iranian government's watchful eye. But it was a seemingly innocent report that forced him to flee to the UK.
In my report, I wrote only one thing: road is not standard because this car crash happened. And this thing, it was dangerous for me.
About 7:30, somebody rang me and they said, where is your husband? I said, who are you? They said, we working in the council.
The call was in fact from the Iranian intelligence service, who were accusing Hadi of spying. With his brother already facing the death penalty, Hadi feared his fate could be the same. So he went into hiding whilst his family tried to get him to the UK for safety.
And straight away my wife, she sold my house to pay to people to move me to safe place, and they did. And I came to UK. All the way I came back home.
Hadi arrived in the UK in October 2003 and claimed asylum. Like all asylum seekers, he had limited access to healthcare and other services and was forbidden from working.
A lot of asylum seekers coming here are bringing skills that this country needs, that they're both the age and enthusiasm, that they would actually maybe making a contribution to the Britain's economic development and the kind of growth if they were actually given the right to work and were seen as economic migrants. But the problem is people come on the basis of being oppressed, claiming asylum, and then they switch into almost a no man's land of often then being excluded from kind of basic services that we would take for granted.
But with a strong case, by January 2004, Hadi was granted indefinite leave to remain in the UK and officially became a refugee. After 4 months on his own, this decision meant he was at last allowed to invite his wife and 2 children over to the UK to join him. But as for many refugees and migrant families, the difficulties didn't stop there. This is Woodhouse, a suburb where Hadi and his family first lived. But despite being together for the first time in 6 months, it's not a place that has happy memories.
It was too difficult. 1 year we lived in Woodhouse. It was horrible time, and people lived in Woodhouse. They treat us very badly, and they try to push me and my family out in Woodhouse, and they burgled my house. They stole my bins, rubbish bins, and they stole my children's bike.
And losing their bikes wasn't the only problem Hadi's children, Juan and Xuan, faced when they first arrived in the UK.
I remember on my first day at school, I was in year 5. I actually missed my dinner because I didn't know that it was lunchtime and everything, and these teachers were searching because you had to take your name off if you had your lunch, and then they sort of some people call names and everything. I say, "Oh, you're a refugee." I'm like, whatever, leave me alone.
Because of my English, I didn't know. They just made fun of my English.
But things better now.
Yeah, it's better. I think so. Yeah.
Like many migrant communities, Sheffield's Kurds organise after-school clubs to help children get up to speed with their schoolwork and also maintain cultural links with the country they've come from. But in many ways, learning to live in a foreign country is more of a challenge for the adults, especially women, like Hadi's wife, Zainab. Like many refugees, Zainab finds herself isolated in a world of unfamiliar food, laws and general ways of life. But perhaps the most isolating thing of all is the language barrier.
When you go somewhere, you can't speak the language that is difficult for you. Sometimes I tell someone something I know, and I can't tell them because my English is not very good.
Despite the challenges, after nearly 5 years of living in Sheffield, Hadi and his family are beginning to feel more settled. But not all migrants are quite so fortunate, and Hadi's keen to help those who found the UK asylum process more difficult, like his friend Zudesht.
When I came in 2nd February 2003, I've been in the street about 2 months. I applied for asylum seekers, but Home Office said we are not care. You can go and find somewhere for yourself. I'm strange people in this country. I applied for asylum seeker, when I went to High Court without lawyer or solicitor, because they say we don't pay for you.
Despite arriving in the UK 6 months before Hadi, 5 years on, Zadesht's claim for asylum still hasn't been settled. As his first application was turned down, he's currently appealing to have the decision reversed, and that puts him in a vulnerable and difficult position.
If you don't get refugee status, and you have a whole different life from if you do, where people have had negative decisions but have not been returned to their country of origin, and in some cases are ending up either living on vouchers or kind of living destitute, and by destitute that means that they're receiving no kind of form of support from the state at all.
No smoking.
Zadesht is given vouchers for his accommodation, which limits the places where he can live. His room might look okay now, but that's because he did it up himself. And when he first moved here, it was in a very bad state of repair, like the rest of the house where he lives.
And that is an old house, actually have a bad smell, and the old carpet and the leaking. It's horrible. Actually, it's a very dirty place. And that is a kitchen room. So as we say, just please changing that. Say no.
Oh, sorry.
That person is from Iraq, the Kurdish. He's more than 4 years. That is a Kurdish from Syria. That from Eritrea. And that is just toilets, yeah. All the
So 6 people.
Yeah.
We'll follow you in.
Actually, that is my friend's rooms, but he's gone because that room they're leaking. You cannot see. And all the radiator not working. So I can't live in here.
As an asylum seeker, Zadesht isn't allowed to do any paid work. He has to live off £35 in supermarket vouchers he gets each week. This means relying on the goodwill of friends or getting donations from charities, especially as he usually sells his vouchers to buy phone cards or bus tickets.
Actually, I sold my gift card by £25 cash, less than, because I need cash money for my ticket, credit, or something. And then when I get that should be show your picture, you know.
The amount of voluntary work asylum seekers can do is also restricted. And with little money to get by, boredom, depression and other mental health problems are very common.
About the psychology, if you go in and search and check all the asylum seekers, is more than 90 or 80% that have a mental problem. Just stay at home, you know, just thinking. You can't go anywhere. Somebody have a family in the damn country. For example, that person in Downs have 2 children and a wife in Iraq. You know, I don't know how to explain his feel at the moment. Every night he's crying, and my children.
As the government seeks to reduce the number of asylum seekers, the future for people like Zadesht looks increasingly bleak. But for many forced migrants, the greatest hope is to return to the country they once fled. And Zadesht and Hadi say they'll continue to campaign until the freedoms most people take for granted have been restored in their homeland.